Good afternoon, everybody. This is Diane Yantel from the National Low-Income Housing Coalition. Welcome to today's webinar for the United for Homes campaign. We're excited to have you all join today. We have some important updates, and we're going to spend some time on today's call sharing some media tools that we've created for you to help us as ambassadors of the campaign. So as we talked about a little bit on the last webinar, tax reform clearly is a top priority of both the administration and Congress, and we know with certainty that key decision makers are considering some changes to the mortgage interest deduction. So we have this tremendous opportunity for our campaign to reach its goals in the near future if we get this right. And we'll reach that goal, through a combination of continued research, advocacy, education, lobbying, and much of that we can achieve and really amplify through using the media, traditional media and social media, as a way to really, convey all of this information and reach a much broader audience than we're otherwise able to. So since our last webinar, we've had a couple of great placements for the United for Homes in the media. We had a letter to the editor in the Wall Street Journal that was responding to an article by a leading conservative radio host, thinker, Hugh Hewitt, who is adamantly supportive of the mortgage interest deduction. So we got our message out there through the letter to the editor responding on all the reasons why he is wrong. And then we also just this week had a joint op-ed together with Mark Calabria from the Cato Institute that was published in The Hill. And that one has generated a lot of interest and excitement, I think, because it's so unexpected to have the National Low-Income Housing Coalition and the Cato Institute together agreeing on a policy proposal. And certainly there's plenty that we don't agree on, but when it comes to the mortgage interest deduction, there's a lot that we do agree on. So that's been generating a lot of conversation. It's really interesting to go to the Hill's website and look at the comments, which some of us sometimes try to avoid. I can't help myself, but I always end up looking. And there's hundreds and hundreds of them, and it's fascinating because there's this really active debate going on right now in the comment section of the Hill around whether MID reform should happen or not and how it should happen, and it's generating discussion, which is good for our work and for our cause. So we want to talk with you about how you can do the same and get the message out through local papers, through the national media, through social media, because the more we are kind of generating the conversation, the more the United for Homes campaign is a key part of the discussion around tax reform, the more we can influence its outcome. So, so why don't we move forward on the slide. So we're going to talk today, we'll have a policy update, we'll hear a little bit about what's happening in the field, and then we'll spend a good amount of time talking about ways that you can be an ambassador for United for Homes through some messaging and tools that we've created, and then we'll leave some time certainly for questions and discussion. We're going to live tweet during today's webinar, and we invite you to do the same. So you can follow us at United for Homes, and there's some hashtags up on your screen that we recommend: United for Homes, MID, Smart Tax Reform, and you can share some of what you're seeing and what you're learning via social media starting now. So the presenters today, we have myself, we have Sarah Michelson, who's the Director of Public Policy here at the National Low-Income Housing Coalition, Joey Lindstrom, who is our Manager of Field Organizing, and Lisa Marlowe, the Communications Specialist at the Coalition. And just a reminder of the overview of the purpose of the United for Homes campaign and our central message and goal. It is a national effort to rebalance federal housing policy by making modest changes to the mortgage interest deduction to provide tax relief to more low and moderate income homeowners who currently get none from having no tax break from having a mortgage, and to invest the significant savings, it's over $240 billion over 10 years, into programs that ensure the lowest income people in the U.S., including those that are homeless, have decent, affordable, accessible homes. So I'll turn it over now to Sarah to give some policy updates.
Great, thank you. So just to give you guys a little background about what we're hearing on the Hill about tax reform, it continues to be the top priority for both members of Congress and the President. They're actively working in terms of putting together legislation and moving it through the process. As for timing, we don't expect a bill out anytime soon, but there's a lot of work that's being done behind the scenes and a lot of decisions that impact our campaign. As Diane mentioned, the mortgage interest deduction is certainly on the table. We've been meeting with every congressional office on the Ways and Means Committee and the Finance Committee. Those are the committees that oversee tax policy and will be taking the leading role in their reform legislation. And what we've learned is really a confirmation of what we've known all along, which is that they are actively looking at proposals to reform the mortgage interest deduction in different ways. And in fact, a group of Republicans on the committee are working together kind of behind the scenes, looking at different proposals and weighing the pros and cons of how that would work. But right now, their main focus in reforming the mortgage interest deduction is to produce savings that they can use to lower the tax rates. And we really want to get out in front of them to let them know that we support their efforts to reform the mortgage interest deduction in many ways, but we have to see those savings reinvested into providing affordable housing for people who have the greatest needs. So we've done some work so far with your help to kind of raise awareness about this. Representative Keith Ellison from Minnesota is circulating a Dear Colleague letter. This is a letter that members of Congress often send to other members to keep them up to date on information or garner support for an issue. This letter asks Congress to keep housing dollars within housing and any tax reform bill. So it doesn't expressly call for MID reform. Instead, it says that if Congress decides to move forward with MID reform, we have to reinvest the savings into affordable housing. So far, there's actually an update. We have 26 representatives who have signed on as of this morning. Your outreach to your members of Congress is really working. This is really close to our goal of having 30 representatives sign on to this. It would really help us fire up and have some heat onto this issue. So thank you for all of the work that you've done so far, and please continue to reach out to them through Friday when it's the deadline. We've also learned from Representative Keith Ellison's office that today they are introducing legislation inspired in part by our work around the United for Homes campaign that really achieves what we're setting out to do. So as Diane mentioned, it includes our 2 different reforms to the mortgage interest deduction, reducing the size of a mortgage that's eligible for a tax break from $1 million to the first $500,000 on a loan. That impacts fewer than 5% of all mortgages. It also would convert the mortgage interest deduction into a credit. And this is really important because half of all homeowners don't receive any benefit from the mortgage interest deduction because they don't itemize their taxes. So by converting it to a credit, all homeowners can receive some sort of tax relief. And together, those 2 savings, those 2 reforms would produce about $241 billion in savings. And the bill redirects that money into the low-income housing tax credit, the Housing Trust Fund, public housing and rental assistance programs at USDA and HUD, as well as possibly the creation of a renter's tax credit. It really runs the full gamut of many different programs that we all rely on in our communities to serve people who have the greatest housing needs. So we're very excited about this bill. We're so thankful that Representative Keith Ellison is such a champion on this issue, and we encourage you to reach out to your representatives in the House and ask them to co-sponsor the bill with him.
Hi everyone, this is Joey with what will be a fairly brief field update for this month. We have been working, as you know, very heavily on the Dear Colleague letter that Representative Ellison will be sending to leadership on the Ways and Means Committee. We thank you for all of the work that you've done getting calls and emails into your members of Congress. Surely we wouldn't have hit 25 additional co-sponsors without the work that you've been doing. We'll now be transitioning to a different ask, which is on not the Dear Colleague letter, but rather the actual bill. For those of you who have been United for Homes endorsers for several years, this will be similar to asks you've made before to your members of Congress, but with the key difference being that this year's version of the bill, this Congress's version of the bill, makes the revenue that is saved through mortgage interest deduction reform available to more programs. You might recall that in both the 113th and 114th Congress, the legislation was focused very heavily on the National Housing Trust Fund. That's still very much a priority, but there's more flexibility in what our campaign is doing, and there are more programs involved in the actual legislation. This might be helpful for your asks that you're making to your members of Congress. So those of you who have engaged previously with little success might want to use this opportunity, this new legislation and this new environment to engage again. Please remember also that for the Ellison bill, we're hoping to have not just organizations, but also individuals contact their members of Congress. So when you see our forthcoming call to action on this piece of legislation, please do forward to your networks and include in your social media blasts and postings and so forth. Beyond contacting members of Congress through calls and emails, we do want to make you aware of 2 upcoming district work periods, which is the preferred congressional euphemism for recess. They want to make sure everyone knows that work is happening. For those of you who want to meet with the actual member of Congress and not staff, this oftentimes will be your best opportunity to do so. It's hard to get the attention of a member of Congress when they and you are actually in DC, but when they return home to their districts, they are very often available for site visits. For those of you who might be affordable housing developers or homeless service providers, they are often available for meetings, or they might be hosting town halls that you can show up and participate in by asking questions about affordable housing. These are opportunities we really encourage all of you to seize, because it gives you an opportunity not just to meet with your member of Congress or their staff, but to meet with them in a location where it's easier for you to invite additional voices. You can include members of your broader coalition in your community. You can include resident leaders who are engaged in your network, and all without having to travel to Washington, D.C. You can also, if it's something like a site visit or an event that the member of Congress is invited to attend or speak at, you can take photographs and then use your website and your social media to really share that the member of Congress engaged with you on this issue, and then remind people that the member of Congress was asked to take specific action. And you can sort of state that in a public format while you're thanking them for attending your event. So this is really an important way to connect with your member of Congress. We have 2 upcoming opportunities. February 18th through 26th, Congress will be out for a period of 1 week for President's Day. And April 8th through the 23rd for Passover and Easter, both the House and the Senate will be out for a period of 2 weeks. We really encourage you to get in touch with your members of Congress to set those meetings as soon as possible. These can be great ways to continue building relationships with staff people and with the actual members themselves. As always, if you need any help as you're making these asks and engaging your members of Congress, please do let us know at the field team, and we'll provide you with whatever help you might need.
Thank you, Joey. Hi, everyone. This is Lisa. I'm one of the newest members of the NLIAC team, and I'm extremely excited to be part of this webinar. So let's begin with a quote about communications from author and former presidential speechwriter James C. Humes. The art of communication is the language of leadership. And here's another one from journalist and author Sidney Harris. The 2 words information and communication are often used interchangeably, but they signify quite different things. Information is giving out, communication is getting through.
I've shared these quotes with you to illustrate how important the field of communication is. Communication is described as the language of leadership. It is more than just sending a tweet or posting on Facebook. When done successfully and with strategy, you can reach thousands. With that reach, you can begin to shape the narrative of your campaign and become a leading resource. With accurate information and tools, you can feel empowered to spread your campaign message to a larger audience. So the objective of this next portion of the webinar is to provide you with the tools and strategies you need in order to feel empowered and become ambassadors of this United for Homes campaign. Let's move on by highlighting a few main talking points of the campaign. We want to be clear and consistent with what we share with the public, and especially people in the media. Here are some facts that are strong, accurate, and relatable. When speaking or writing about this campaign, it's important to remind the audience that there's a shortage of more than 7 million affordable and accessible homes for our nation's 10 million plus extremely low-income households, or that less than 25% of federal housing spending benefit low-income renters. Use facts to paint a stronger picture for your audience. Don't shy away from pointing out what has been documented, and this is the reason why the campaign is important. The Media Toolkit contains source information to back up all of the talking points listed. If you get an opportunity to share these talking points with actual reporters, be sure to review your main talking points and sources carefully before you communicate with the reporter. This goes for anything written and spoken. And remember, nothing is off the record. Unless it's a local reporter, try to steer the story toward the bigger picture. Use language like, this is how this issue could affect millions of people, or this is how this proposal could save billions of dollars. Even with local reporters, speak to local issues, but focus on the broader meaning. This will help to get the story picked up nationally. Learn to pivot. Remember, you don't have to answer a question that you don't want to answer. If the reporter is trying to steer you down a path you feel will be too controversial, you can respond by saying, well, that's an important point, but I think the larger issue is X, Y, or Z. And to further prepare, become familiar with the FAQs that are in the Media Toolkit. These questions were compiled based on the number of times we've received them. So if they reach our FAQ list, it's more than likely that a reporter will ask you 1 or 2 questions on this list. Share, share, share some more. Now that you've had an interview with a reporter, you want to share your experience, a published story, give people a heads up that a story is coming, or just share an interesting fact about the campaign that you may have learned from reading the toolkit. The most popular platforms for sharing quick information for this type of campaign is through Twitter and Facebook. But social media is truly successful when you've established a routine. So if someone shares an interesting fact with you, share it on social media. Use hashtags United for Homes, BART Tax Reform, and MID to index keywords or topics on Twitter. This hashtag function allows people to easily follow topics they're interested in and allows you to categorize tweets by keywords and help show these keywords more easily in a Twitter search. Clicking on a hashtag word in any message shows you other tweets that include that hashtag. Hashtags that can be included anywhere in a tweet. Hashtag words that become very popular are often trending topics, which can be identified as sometimes as a good thing because a trending topic is more visible to a larger audience. Try to keep messages short and concise. Twitter has a 140-character limit. This includes spaces. The limit is about 120 when including links. If you would like to post to multiple social media sites and you don't have time to post frequent updates, you can use a tool such as Hootsuite to manage your social media and schedule posts based on optimal times, usually between 12 p.m. and 3 p.m., and post your message to multiple platforms. Here are a few sample tweets that are included in your toolkit. One reads, I'm tweeting today as one of the proud 2,300 endorsers of hashtag United for Homes, RT, or retweet us, or at NLIC if you think everyone deserves an affordable home. And here are a couple of sample Facebook posts. Please feel free to use any of these tweets or posts now. Since Facebook has no character limit, use this opportunity to share a few more details and interesting facts. If you don't have a Twitter or Facebook account, I suggest that you sign up today. Both are easy, free, and user-friendly. Once you sign up, be sure to tag, follow, friend as many people as possible. This should include members of Congress and reporters. Often news is filtered through social media before traditional media, so following a reporter on Twitter can sometimes give you an inside track. Social media also includes blog posts, press releases, op-eds, and letters to the editors, or LTEs. Just like Twitter and Facebook, I would suggest that you sign up to be a blogger. And just like Facebook, blogging is also free, easy, and if you use sites like WordPress and Tumblr, the process to post is very user-friendly. Be sure to share all your published blog posts, op-eds, LTEs, and press releases with your network. I can't tell you how many times I've received a media request from a reporter that recently read about one of NLIC's published op-eds or LTEs on social media. Also, if you have a small budget to create a 5-minute video to visually capture stories of the most affected, share those videos. Some people may not be interested in reading a 1,000-word blog, but most people are interested and will take the time to watch a 5-minute video. So speaking of videos, we would like to share with you an NLIC-produced video called The Simple Solution. This video is available on our YouTube page and will be shared as part of our visual storytelling series we are creating around the campaign. So just returning back to the presentation, let's move along with the social media tips. Just be sure that when you share your text on social media, you share images and graphics. Research has shown that text with images receive 150% more retweets. Using infographics can increase traffic by 12%, and photos are liked twice as much as text updates. And here are some images that NLIC has created and can be downloaded through the toolkit. All of these images capture the story of the campaign and require little supporting text. So now that you've become a whiz on social media and have compiled tons of information through interactions within your network, you want to raise your profile even more by publishing this work in a national paper. How can you do that? Well, through press releases, op-eds, and LTEs, of course. A press release is an official statement announcing new information on a particular matter. Typically, reporters like to read about how you've influenced or changed a national policy or how an influential figure has supported your policy. An op-ed is a piece written typically in the style of an opposing opinion. Articles likely to be published would provide an opposing view to a recent editorial or article written by the paper itself. A LTE is similar to an op-ed, but it is in response to a specific article in the paper itself and is typically written for the purpose of raising a concern with the editorial board about an article. However, before you begin writing any of these pieces, be sure to find out the word limit. They are often different for each document and for each publication. You can usually find this information on the publication's website under the opinion section. A successful press release is no longer than about a page and a half. All documents are easy to draft and submit, and once published will garner wider attention for your organization and this campaign. Please feel free to reference a sample op-ed and press release in the toolkit. Please also remember to share your success. So to wrap up, and just a reminder, tax reform is happening, and reforms to the MID are on the table. This is an optimum time for this campaign and the best opportunity for Congress to invest savings from these reforms into programs for affordable housing. Let's build awareness and rally our efforts to ensure that any savings are invested into programs for those with the greatest needs. To do that, we must spread the message. We can do that by tweeting, posting on Facebook, posting blogs, writing LTEs, write op-eds, invite others to guest blogs, write articles for newsletters, talk about United for Homes campaign at speaking events, invite NLIC staff to local events and town halls, and schedule meetings with elected officials. Bottom line is that there's several different ways that you can engage through social media and traditional media and just through a larger network to spread that message and take advantage of all the different platforms. So that concludes my presentation. I hope you now feel like empowered ambassadors for the United for Homes campaign.
Great job, Lisa. Thank you. So, so we want to open it up for your feedback, your reactions, any kind of questions about anything you've heard throughout the webinar today. Before we do that, just a couple of quick updates. One is breaking news, which is that Mark Calabria, who I mentioned earlier, he and I co-authored the op-ed that was published in The Hill from his position as a senior fellow at the Cato Institute. So as of today, he's no longer with the Cato Institute. He was just hired as the chief economist for Vice President Pence, which is who knows what. Interesting for sure. I mean, interesting, especially knowing how strongly Mark feels that that the mortgage interest deduction should be eliminated or reformed, knowing that Donald Trump has come out saying that he doesn't think it should be changed. So I think, who knows what kind of influence he'll have now, but certainly as a chief economist to the vice president, who's on our side on MID reform and on record supporting a lot of what we support, may be a good thing. We'll see. The other update is around the website. So Lisa mentioned a lot of the tools that the team have put together. You have the media toolkit. You have access to all of that information. We've been working on what's going to be a really terrific new website for the United for Homes campaign. I think like a lot of these kind of projects, we've hit some roadblocks, we've hit some delays. We're so close to getting it out, maybe this week, maybe next week. But in the meantime, we want to make all the materials that we've created available to you all who are our ambassadors for the campaign. So we have on our existing website where the United for Homes page is, we have all of these materials linked there. We're not going to publish that really widely because we're going to wait to do kind of a big reveal when the new website is up, but we want you to have access to all of that. So you can find links to that all on our existing website, and then just stay tuned for more on the new website. We'll certainly let you all know as soon as it's up and running. So why don't we just open it up for any comments or questions, feedback, ideas, anything.
Well, folks on the webinar, if you have any questions, you're welcome to type them into the question box down at the bottom of the control panel on your webinar screen. We don't have any questions right now, but if you do have any, feel free to type them in.
No questions. I know we've got some really active people on this call.
One thing I'll add that James and I were answering as we were going is if anyone is interested in knowing who has signed on to the Ellis Your Colleague letter, you can email outreach@NLIHC and we will send you that list.
Yeah, absolutely. And also interested in feedback on what you've seen about the video or other ideas about how you can take some of the information and ideas that Lisa shared and start to use that in your community. No? Are we able to open up the phone line, or is this? No, we can't. Yeah. All right. We'll try. I think for future ones we'll see if we're able to kind of open up so we can hear a little bit more from people. Oh, we did get, okay, we got one question here about how long until we actually see tax reform legislation. Sarah, you want to take a first out of that?
Yeah, sure. So the Republicans in Congress have really set an ambitious agenda for trying to get tax reform through. So initially they said as soon as the summer they wanted a bill to be on the president's desk for a signature. But we're seeing that there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of things that are causing a little bit of delay. So that gives us some extra time to get in front of these offices, to talk to these members of Congress about the United for Homes campaign. So that's actually a good thing for us that's taking them a little bit longer than they thought. When I've spoken with Republican and Democratic offices, it looks like they're really still working out the details. They aren't close to having draft legislation yet. And so we're using this opportunity, certainly ourselves, to meet with as many members of Congress as possible. And then the more that you guys can do that outreach, the stronger we'll have a push and a feel on Congress. So looking forward to all of your help on that.
Yeah, it's kind of the perfect moment right now to know that it's a top priority and likely to happen soon, but have a little bit of time now to really get our message up to the Hill and to your members of Congress. So like Sarah said, she's been on the Hill a lot throughout the end of last year and the beginning of this year, where she's making her way through all the Ways and Means Committee members, Finance Committee members. We're going to be also pulling together from our endorser list many of the national groups that are here in D.C. to join us in those lobby meetings and those meetings with members of Congress in D.C. so that they can see, you know, from who's sitting in front of them just how broad of a campaign this is. But it certainly really helps. You know, they don't care nearly as much when they hear it from us in their D.C. office as they do when they hear it from you in the local office or you to the D.C. office. Were you going to say something else, Sarah?
Oh, I was going to talk a little bit about why we're not seeing it as much of a third rail anymore. And I think part of that is because, one, tax reform is actually happening. For a decade, it was this long pipe dream that folks had on the Hill that they wanted to do tax reform, and it just never seemed possible. Well, now it's really happening, and part of the reason why it's becoming less of a third rail is because folks are seeing the data and seeing what's on the ground in front of them in terms of the housing affordability crisis, and they're seeing that something just does not make sense. So you're seeing more economists, more thought leaders, certainly more advocates pointing out just how unbalanced our federal housing policy is, where the money's going, and then they're looking in their communities and seeing such high rates of folks who are paying way too much than they can afford on their rent, people who have to make really difficult choices between rent and groceries and doctor's visits. And so I think it's all really coming at a head now, which is really great timing for us again. So just something to keep track of.
Great. Any other questions?
We have no other questions right now.
Okay, well, thanks everybody for joining the call. We really appreciate your engagement, your continued work on this. I just can't say enough how excited I am about this moment and the possibilities in this moment for us actually to achieve our goals. So thanks for staying involved, and to the extent that you can, increasing your involvement, making sure that you are taking some of these tips from Lisa to write blogs, write letters to the editor, take advantage of the sample op-eds that we put together, and just go ahead and submit them to your local papers. The more we are inserting ourselves into the conversation, the more we can really influence the outcome of tax reform and achieve our goals of the campaign. It really is possible if we all work on this together. Our next webinar is going to be on March 8th, 2 p.m. We're going to focus that webinar on building the base and talking about tips and tools for field organizing and hearing from all of you about what you're doing in your communities. So please plan to join us for that, and in the meantime, always feel free to reach out with any questions, comments, or ideas. Thanks so much.